You're so desperate to be loved. It's pathetic, she said. I just smiled, left her to her new man. Now her friends are calling me, saying he broke her and begging me to fix it. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The moment I knew, it wasn't a sudden, earth-shattering revelation. It was a slow, creeping dread that had been settling in my stomach for months. It started with the little things. Sarah, who once loved our quiet Friday nights in, started complaining about how boring our lives were. Our apartment, which we'd spent a year making a home, was too small and too suburban. She'd scroll through Instagram, a look of contempt on her face, and scoff at couples who posted about their cozy lives. Then came the comparisons. Look at Mark and Chloe. They're always traveling. Or my coworker Liam just took his girlfriend to a rooftop bar last night. He's so spontaneous. I try to plan something. A weekend trip to the coast, a fancy dinner out. But it was never enough. It was always a pale imitation of the exciting lives she saw online or heard about from her new friends. I was blindsided. I'd given her everything. When her dad got sick, I drove her to the hospital every day for a month. I worked overtime to surprise her with a trip to her favorite city. I supported her when she wanted to quit her job to try freelance photography. Even though it meant I had to cover most of our expenses, I wasn't just in love with her. I was committed to her happiness. Her contentment was my contentment. But somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing that as a virtue and started seeing it as a flaw. The red flag started waving violently the day I found the text. We were in our bedroom, and she had just stepped down to grab a glass of water, leaving her phone on the bed. A notification popped up from a contact named Liam. I never would have looked, but the first line of the message was impossible to ignore. Can't wait to get away from him this weekend. Are we on for the cabin? My heart felt like it had been punched out of my chest. I picked up her phone, my hands shaking. I scrolled up and saw it all. The flirtatious jokes, the late-night conversations about her boring life, and her predictable boyfriend. She was planning a trip with this guy she'd met at a work event a few weeks ago. The same Liam she'd been talking about endlessly. When she came back into the room, I just held the phone out to her. I couldn't speak. The look on her face wasn't one of panic or remorse. It was annoyance. She snatched the phone back, her jaw tight. "What were you doing looking at my phone?" she demanded. "That's a complete invasion of my privacy, Alex." My voice came out as a whisper. The text. Sarah, away from him. "Who is Liam?" she sighed. A dramatic, eye-rolling motion that was so familiar, it felt like a physical blow. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at me, not with shame, but with condescension. "Okay, so you saw it. What do you want me to say?" she said, as if I were a child asking a difficult question. "He's a man I met. He's interesting and exciting. He takes chances. He's also a man you're cheating on me with," I said, my voice rising slightly. "How could you do this?" "I'm not cheating," she scoffed, using air quotes. "I'm exploring my options." I just stared at her, dumbfounded. "Sarah, you're going away with another man. We've been together for 3 years. Yeah, and you think I don't need more? You think this is all there is?" Her tone became sharper, colder. "Honestly, Alex, you're just too easy, too available. You're the kind of man a woman settles for when she gives up on her dreams." My throat tightened. I felt like I was going to be sick. "But I love you," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. She let out a short, hollow laugh. "That's the thing, isn't it? Your love is so desperate. You're so desperate to be loved. It's pathetic. I need a man who keeps me on my toes, who challenges me, not someone who just gives me everything I want. The smug smirk on her face was the final knife twist. My anger, my hurt, all of it just evaporated. It was replaced by a profound, chilling sense of clarity. I wasn't angry. I was just sad. Sad for her. Sad for the person she had become. I didn't say another word. I just looked at her, and a small, sad smile touched my lips. It wasn't a smile of resignation. It was one of release. I saw the person I thought I knew for what she truly was. Cruel, ungrateful, and fundamentally broken. I nodded once, a single quiet motion, and then I turned around, walked out of the room, and began to pack my bags. I left. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things or demand an apology. I just packed a bag with the essentials. A week's worth of clothes, my laptop, my toothbrush, and the box of old Polaroids from our first year together that I wasn't ready to let go of. The silence was the real killer. I walked past Sarah in the living room, who was sitting on the couch pretending to be on her phone. And she didn't say a word. I didn't either. I just put on my shoes, grabbed my car keys, and walked out the door. The sound of it closing behind me was the only closure I got. For the first few days, the silence was deafening. I stayed at my buddy Mark's place. He'd seen her come and go, and had a bad feeling about the new crowd she was hanging out with. But he was too good a friend to ever say, "I told you so." We mostly just watched movies, and he'd bring me a beer and just sit in silence. That was all I needed. My phone blew up with a couple of text messages from Sarah. The first was just a few hours after I left, acting as if I had overreacted. "Look, I'm sorry you're upset. Can we talk about this like adults?" I didn't respond. The next day, she texted again. "Where are you? Your stuff is still here." I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just a numbness that was more frightening than any rage could ever be. I muted her and put my phone away. My life became quiet. I went to work, came home, and started running again for the first time in 2 years. I'd forgotten how much I loved the feeling of my legs burning and my mind clearing. I deleted my social media for a week, then reactivated it and unfollowed everyone who was a mutual friend of ours, so I didn't have to see a single trace of her. I wasn't doing this to get back at her. I was doing it for me. I needed to build a wall around my life and protect my peace. That numbness slowly started to wear off, replaced by a quiet, steady resolve. I wasn't desperate for her love. I was desperate for the life I thought we were building. But she didn't want it. She wanted chaos. She wanted a chase. And I, in my blind loyalty, had denied her the chance to be unhappy, which was what she truly craved. That's why my love felt pathetic to her. It was too stable, too safe. My calm, consistent presence was a mirror she couldn't stand to look at. About a month later, the quiet started to break. I was having lunch with my friend Mark when he cleared his throat and said, "Hey, I don't want to bring this up, but I ran into Sarah's friend Chloe at a bar the other night." I just nodded, taking a bite of my burger. "She's not doing great," he continued. Apparently, Sarah had been living it up with Liam. She was posting pictures of expensive dinners, lavish trips, and parties, the life she'd always wanted. But behind the scenes, according to Chloe, it was a mess. Liam wasn't just a free spirit. He was a narcissist. He was charming one minute and cold the next. He would disappear for days without calling, and then show up with a flimsy excuse. He constantly belittled her, and not in the playfully mean way she seemed to like, but with a real cutting cruelty. He told her she was too emotional and needy. He told her she was too desperate for his love. "Can you believe that?" Mark said, shaking his head. I just took a sip of my drink. A small, dry chuckle escaped my lips. The irony was so rich it was almost funny. "And it gets worse," Mark continued. "Chloe said Liam was still talking to other girls. She saw a text on his phone from some other woman just like you saw on Sarah's. When she confronted him about it, he just laughed in her face and told her she was paranoid and needed to trust the process. That's when it hit me. He was playing her exactly how she played me, but with a much nastier edge. She'd traded my rock-solid loyalty for a man who gave her exactly what she wanted. A cruel, unpredictable chase. She'd gotten her drama, and now she was miserable. The person who mistook my love for pathetic desperation was now desperately seeking love from a man who refused to give it. A few more weeks passed, and the whispers got louder. Our mutual friends were getting tired of her constant complaints about Liam. She was isolated, and her friends were beginning to see the patterns. Her social media went from curated, exciting posts to vague, moody rants. The karma wasn't a lightning strike. It was a slow, public unspooling. She was losing her friends, her public image, and her mind, all while he was still out there giving her just enough attention to keep her on the hook. It was a beautiful, tragic mess, and I wasn't even there to see it. All I had to do was sit back and watch from a safe distance as the life she'd wanted so badly came crashing down around her. Her attempts to reconnect with me started subtly. The first was a text, simple and innocuous. "Hey, it's Sarah. Hope you're doing well." It was the kind of text you send to a former acquaintance. I read it, felt nothing, and deleted it without responding. A few days later, she tried again. "Look, I know things were messed up. Can we please talk? I miss you." This time, I blocked her number. There was nothing to talk about. The person she was trying to talk to was gone. The person she was pretending to be in her texts was a stranger to me. The attempts escalated. I started getting calls from numbers I didn't recognize. The messages were left on my voicemail. A few of them were just her crying. Others were full of angry accusations. "Why are you ignoring me, Alex? What did I ever do to deserve this?" I just listen, a small, detached smile on my face, and then delete the messages. It was a perfect microcosm of our relationship. She created the problem, and I was supposed to fix it, even after she had already moved on. Then her friends got involved. I got a text from Chloe, one of the friends she'd been hanging out with. "Alex, this is Chloe. Sarah is in a really bad place right now. She's been so depressed ever since things ended with Liam. She said she made a huge mistake, and she really needs you." I texted back, "Chloe, I appreciate you reaching out, but Sarah and I are done. I wish her the best, but I'm not the right person to help her." My response was polite but firm. No sympathy, no apology, just the truth. I blocked her number too. A few days later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I answered it, and it was her mom, her voice full of concern. "Alex, honey, is that you? It's so good to hear from you. Sarah is so sad. She won't talk to any of us. She says she ruined her life. She said she needs to talk to you. You're the only one who can make her happy." The sheer audacity of her family trying to guilt me into coming back made my blood run cold. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller, but I'm not able to talk about this. I've moved on." She was stunned into silence, and I hung up. The final desperate attempt was when she showed up at my apartment. I hadn't changed my address yet, which was a mistake. She was standing there in a t-shirt and sweatpants, looking like a ghost of the person she used to be. Tears were streaming down her face, and her makeup was smudged. "Alex," she sobbed, her voice a little girl whisper. "Please, can we just talk? I'm so sorry. I miss you. I want you back." I just looked at her, and the pity was gone. I just saw her for the first time for who she was and who she'd been all along. I just closed the door on her face. It had been 6 months since I'd last seen her. I was at my friend Mark's wedding, a beautiful ceremony under a canopy of oak trees, and I felt more at peace than I had in years. I had a new job, a new apartment, and a new perspective on life. Sarah, according to our mutual friends, was still a mess. Her parents were now calling them begging for money to help their daughter get back on her feet. She had completely fallen apart after Liam had left her, taking her pride and her dignity with. I was getting a drink at the bar when I saw her. She was standing in the back, talking to a few of her friends who looked incredibly uncomfortable. The confident, smug girl I once knew was gone. Her hair was a mess. Her clothes looked a few sizes too big, and her eyes were a little too red. She looked up and saw me. The smirk I once saw on her face had been replaced with a pleading look. She walked over to me, her shoulders hunched. "Alex," she said, her voice a little shaky. "You look so good. You look so happy." I nodded, but said nothing. "I just wanted to say, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I was an idiot. Liam was a monster. He was so abusive. I've been so lost. My life is a mess." She paused, waiting for a hug, a sympathetic word, an apology. She was waiting for me to be the old Alex. "You told me you needed a man who kept you on your toes," I said, my voice calm, flat, and professional. "It sounds like you found what you were looking for. And when you told me you were done with a man who is desperate to be loved, I realized that I wasn't just desperate. I was committed. You mistook my loyalty for neediness, and I'm glad you did. It set me free, and I was so happy I didn't stay with a person who didn't understand the difference." I took a sip of my drink, my eyes meeting hers. She looked at me, her eyes filling with tears. "I miss you," she said, her voice a whisper. "I miss us." "You don't miss me, Sarah," I said, a small, knowing smile on my face. "You miss what you thought I was. A placeholder until you found something better. You missed the person who made you feel safe, who made you feel loved, who never let you feel lonely." I looked at her, a profound sense of peace washing over me. "I'm glad you don't have that anymore. I'm glad you're feeling what you needed to feel. I'm glad you're finally learning what it feels like to be unloved." I took a final sip of my drink, placed the empty glass on the bar, and walked away. I didn't look back. She was no longer a part of my story. She was just a footnote in a long, painful chapter that I had finally, truly, and completely closed. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.